Welcome to the We Watch This Movie podcast, where we sit down for a cup of coffee and discuss the latest and the greatest in film. This is our Minisode series where we dive in for 20-25 minutes to some movies that we didn't cover on the main show. I'm, as always, joined by the man with over 2,000 films on his watch list, Jackson, aka Marshall on Film. How you doing?
Dan Allen Movies, I'm fantastic. I've never been better. I'm so excited today to talk about a movie with so much energy and so much passion and 95 minutes that just flies by. Hopefully flies by almost as quick as this minisode will. What minisode number is it? Number 6?
I believe it's number 6. We've been cracking
Number
them
6.
out, and we really appreciate everyone's support, guys. We really would love you to head over to our YouTube, subscribe, but not only that, give us a 5-star rating on Apple. It really, really helps us out in terms of rankings. Spotify, follow. Google, follow. Wherever you listen to us, anything is appreciated. Instagram, Twitter, we're everywhere, aren't we, Jackson?
Absolutely. And again, just like Dan Allen Movies has said, I want to reiterate, we are so grateful and so thankful for all of our faithful and loyal listeners. Dan Allen Movies, what's today's date?
And more. On October 3rd, he asked me what day it was.
It's October 3rd.
Brilliant! The Mean Girls minisode. Maybe next month, maybe next year, maybe when we get another big release with Lindsay Lohan. Yeah,
Can I ask, what's just straight off the bat, what's your rating for Mean Girls?
Oh, that's tough.
I
Look,
reckon I've
haven't
got
seen
it
this
at an
movie
8
in a
out of
few
10.
years. I was just about to say,
Yeah?
You've taken the words right out of my mouth. It's probably going to get an 8 or a 9 out of 10.
It's a bit of a classic.
So, absolutely classic and smart and witty and charming and so endlessly rewatchable. Like, I can't think of it, and it's instantly memorable.
Can you
Totally
think of
quotable.
any other Lindsay Lohan
Any otherable
films
lines?
that were that good?
Oh, how many times have you seen The Parent Trap?
I can't. When did she start to go downhill? Was that about 2009, 10, or maybe a bit later?
It was long before that. I think it was right about the
really?
time that Mean Girls came out. Yeah.
Oh, okay, right. She's probably in her late 30s now, mid 30s. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, she's got to be up there in age. I wonder what happened to her twin sister from The Parent Trap.
We're not talking about that. Today we're looking at Buffaloed, which is... we got a screener thanks to our man Anthony. If you're listening, you're a legend. We appreciate it. Buffaloed starring who, Jackson?
Starring Zoey Deutch. Dan, Zoey Deutch, did you know this bit of trivia, is Leah Thompson's daughter. Leah Thompson, as in Marty McFly, Michael J. Fox's mum from Back to the Future.
Wow. There you go.
And now that
Bit
I've
of
said
trivia?
that, can you not picture Zoey Deutch in that role?
Yeah, I can. I have I seen her in more things, because I looked at her IMDb briefly and I didn't recognize many, but her face is very familiar. Where have I seen her? Where have the listeners seen her? Do you know?
You would have seen her in another movie released in, I believe it was 2019. I didn't catch it. I love the first movie, but sadly I still haven't seen this. Zombieland Double Tap. She played Madison, the dumb blonde, and just about stole the show.
And that was just last year as well, wasn't it? Yeah. I knew I recognized her from somewhere. Did you end up seeing that? You did, obviously.
No, as I just said, thanks you so much, Dan Allen Movies, forever listening to my interesting conversation.
Said you didn't. Oh, there you go.
I just said I didn't. But she has popped up in some other projects, some more independent stuff. I believe she may have turned 24 this year. So Zoey Deutch still kicking off her career, but I think she's going to be one to watch in the coming years. And without going into too much about my thoughts and opinions on this film, I want to say I'm ready to check her out in more stuff.
And it also stars Jai Courtney, an Aussie, which, you know, I always flog the Aussies here on the podcast, always giving them a bigger rap than maybe some of them deserve. But I love him as well, so... you know,
the man is a talent. I'll give him that.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into Buffaloed.
Who wants to talk about money? That's me, Peg Doll. The maroon suit and nurse shoes may not tell you this, but I'm a hustler. Anyone need any tickets? I wouldn't screw you over. I'm a Bills fan.
Ma'am?
I'm making lots of friends in here.
I'm gonna break your tiny little ass in two.
That's not that bad.
Buffaloed, Jackson. What were your thoughts?
Dan Allen Movies, who wore the better maroon suit? Joaquin Phoenix or Zoey Deutch?
Zoe, it was pretty great costume design there. I guess you could call it costume design. I don't know. Fitting. It sort of suited her personality, didn't it? Very bubbly, very vibrant.
Yeah. Hey, took the words right out of my mouth there, mate. This is every outfit, every costume she has throughout the film. I think Zoey Deutch might have actually bought them herself at quite a few thrift stores. Yeah, I had a great time with this. And for our listeners who might not be too sure what Buffalo's about, how about we give them a quick rundown, a quick synopsis, as it were, one of the staples here at the We Watch This Movie podcast. Here goes. Buffalo, New York is the debt collection capital of America, though Peg Dahl never saw herself in that world. She's bet on her sharp mind and even sharper mouth to get her out of town and into an Ivy League university. But when an acceptance letter to the school of her dreams arrives, Pegger quickly realizes the cruel impossibility of paying tuition. A chance phone call changes everything and leads Peggy into the lucrative yet complex and shady business of delinquent debt collection. She's a natural and soon running her own shop, but at what cost? Back to you, Dan Allen Movies, after that very brief interlude. Thank you so much. What did you think of Buffaloed, this hour and a half, which we do love here at the podcast? Shorter movie, comedy, drama, bit of genre bending going on here.
Well, for me, it fell in the place of drama more than it did comedy. I wasn't laughing as much as I think I should have been, for one. Okay? That being said, I did enjoy the movie for the most part. I really did like Jai Courtney in this as Wiz, I think his name was.
He was basically unrecognizable. I thought, who is this guy? I've seen his face somewhere before. He also looked like every sleazebag you've ever seen in any of these.
He's usually films. It's funny because he's usually cast as a cop a lot of the time, or a man in uniform.
An action star?
Yeah, so seeing him in a different role here, he was great. I think he's got a lot of talent, and I want to see him really rise to the occasion. Hopefully he gets some more opportunities. I know he was in a few, I guess you could say, blockbuster misfires like Suicide Squad and Terminator Genesis, but he really, besides
you can't forget the Die Hard sequel.
Correct. Besides that, he was, I think his big break was Spartacus, which propelled him, but he stole the show, besides obviously Zoe, who really stole the show here. Without her, the film doesn't work. The bubbly personality, always getting up to no good, always trying to think one step ahead. She was great. She was a natural actor. It just felt like this was her personality. She was this character, and really enjoyed her performance. The story as a whole and how it sort of shaped and blended in the editing, I don't know if it had my attention the whole 95 minutes. I'm not sure. It felt like a 2-hour movie in a 95er. So I don't know if that's a bad thing, but maybe it's just the storyline that didn't have me that intrigued, that just what's going on here. Because I felt like towards maybe the third act, there was a lot of back and forth where she would be caught out and then she would get one up on him and he would get one up. I felt like maybe too many one-ups. Did you feel that?
Too many one-ups, Dan Allen Movies. You make an interesting point about this 95-minute film feeling like 2 hours. For the first 45 minutes, which is essentially the first act and then the break into the second, it moves at a blistering and relentless pace.
You never slow down, do you?
No, you don't slow down. And not only is it scene after scene after scene, but it's location after location after location. Like we see Peggy Dahl, Zoey Deutch's character. We see her kind of strutting her stuff all over Buffalo, coming up with different schemes. She's looking to get money. She's a hustler, and she's basically like a metaphor for hustle culture. You know, what Gary V would kind of proclaim, that never stop hustling. You want to work. And she has a goal in mind, and it's entertaining to watch, but it doesn't really give us a chance to breathe. And then finally, when we hit the midpoint of the film, when we have this, it honestly felt like 10 minutes because we finally had a chance to breathe. But this intimate sequence between Peggy and then Graham, the lawyer played by Jermaine Fowler, at that point, like the momentum just halted. I believe I sent you a message off air when I was watching saying, wow, this just really came to a grinding halt. Yeah. And if it were in a different film where we had more of those sequences and times to breathe, maybe, you know, we're going to draw easy comparisons to The Wolf of Wall Street or The Big Short, both which had much more bloated running times than Buffalo has. If there were more of those moments, then it wouldn't stand out as much. But here it kind of does, because after this slower sequence between the two of them, then it's straight back into the dynamic between Peggy and between Wiz. Wiz is the name of Jai Courtney's character. And it's like the battle just kind of continues. There's a lot of ideas and a lot of points that the screenwriter, Brian Sacker, who plays Sal in the film, that he wants to explore about Buffalo, but there's never really any deep analysis and never really any deep critique. And I feel like that's a weak point of the film. We want to throw in a lot of lingo from the town. We want to throw in almost, I guess, like, I can't quite think of the word here, but you could say basically motifs about the town itself, and that's all in Peggy's character. And it's cool to have these thrown at us, but what do they mean? What do they actually lead to? By the end of it, the movie just kind of ends, and it's fun, but it's not as deep as you want it to be. And you feel like that there could have been more dramatic elements. Peggy never really gets her comeuppance, and as a character, she never really learns.
You think it's the script or the editing and pacing that's at fault here, that when it comes to a grinding halt? Or is it just you know what I think it is? I think it's a relationship between the two. I didn't feel the chemistry between her and the lawyer at all.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I 100% agree. No offense to Jermaine Fowler. He's not the most convincing lawyer ever to be put on film. This guy's a comedian. I don't know who's less convincing than him. I'm going to point out two others: Jim Carrey in Liar Liar, or Reese Witherspoon in Pretty in Pink. I mean,
I reckon Reese is.
Oh, Pretty in Pink. Wow, Legally Blonde.
Yeah.
Come on, I'm getting my movies wrong here, but I mean, between those three, it's like, yeah, I don't really buy this guy as a lawyer, and it's kind of another subplot that struggles to breathe in this film.
They don't get enough time to really bond the relationship to bond, I don't think. Maybe it was him, because she was pretty good the whole way through. But yeah, I just think the editing or the pacing or something in there wasn't quite right, because a lot of the times I would feel the urge to pick up the phone or go somewhere, do something else, try like anything to watch. Sometimes it just lost my attention, which I always try to give 100% to the movie, but sometimes if you're not giving it back to me, it's hard to stick with it. So, it's a tough one, because it's a low budget film. It's
an indie comedy, essentially.
It's an indie comedy, so they're very hit and miss. When you talk about Buffalo, and the title Buffalo, what do you think they're actually referring to? What are they trying to get across with that? Is it just trying to be quirky? Is it? Because I tend to agree, where they only show the town in terms of the football team or whatever it was.
It's very surface level.
Yeah, is it just they're struggling to come up with a title for the film? I don't know.
It could be the case, yeah. Brian Sacker, again, the screenwriter who's from Buffalo, and he was likely inspired to kind of pen this and put this together, having acted in The Wolf of Wall Street, which he showed up in.
Would you want to see a film called Frankston?
Oh, absolutely. Maybe that could be one you and I write and direct. How does that sound?
Hey, mate, that'll be a drug fest, eh?
Oh, goodness me.
That'll be a scary film.
For our international listeners out there, just pick any kind of run down and dingy part of your town and apply that to the title.
Sorry
Frankston.
if anyone out there
that would just about sum
I know
it
we've
up.
got a few Frankston listeners. We love you. I'm sorry. Jackson, why don't we get into the ratings?
Jackson's ratings.
IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes, audience score, and Letterboxd.
Tough one to discuss the ratings on Dan Allen movies, because this hasn't been widely seen. In fact, it had a very limited release in select theaters over in the US, and at the domestic box office there, when it was released back at the end of February this year, unfortunately, you might have heard of this, coronavirus put a halt to a lot of this run. It only grossed $25,383 reported US dollars. Now, we don't know about the budget. It's likely that, being an indie comedy, could have been a couple million. Who really knows? Zoey Deutch served as a producer. Maybe we should, DM her Instagram. She might have let us know. But it couldn't have been any more. It did have a release on video on demand, so maybe it's done a little bit there. Who knows? Let's go into the ratings, as you said. So IMDb, from only 2,856 user ratings collated so far, a 6.2 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes has this, from only 50 critic reviews, 78% on the tomato meter. It is certified fresh, an average rating of 6.54 out of 10. So on the whole so far, we're seeing lots of sixes. People think it's a good movie, not necessarily a great movie. We might have been quite harsh, kind of picking this apart when we were talking about, our initial thoughts. I did quite like this, and we'll go into our final ratings here a little bit. The audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, 88% of audiences gave this a rating of 3.5 out of 5 or higher. So at least the audiences enter join this mix between The Big Short and Wolf of Wall Street. Female led, I should say. Metacritic, Metascore so far of 61 from 13 critic reviews and a user score of 6.2. Finally, Letterboxd, who highlighted this movie as a part of their feature looking at the Tribeca Film Festival from 2019, 3.3 out of 5. It's been logged by nearly 7,500 users and liked by 1.7 thousand of them. So It hasn't been widely seen just yet, but I'm gonna recommend this to listeners and that they go out and see Buffalo. What about you, Dan Allen Movies?
Do you reckon that'll get a release here in Australia in theaters, or straight to VOD, or how will that work?
I believe it was, or at least will be made available video on demand here in Australia. But considering that we still don't have a lot of movies available in cinemas, particularly here in Melbourne, yes, we are still locked down. People, nothing on that new front there. I don't think it's getting a wide release.
Someone come and pick me up. I'll give you my coordinates.
You know what, Dan Allen Movies? I want to give you some quick points to consider, and maybe for our listeners. I mean, what is the future of cinemas, the future of film festivals? Because this premiered at Tribeca in 2019.
Is that the French one?
No, so Tribeca is actually a region, a part of New York. So it's actually a New York Film Festival.
I'm way off, right.
You are way off. I think the French one is Cannes, buddy. I think that's about it.
God, I've lost the plot anyway, yep.
Years. Anyway, Tribeca was founded shortly after 9/11, set up by Robert De Niro and some other Hollywood types wanting to kind of inject some life back into the creative arts, particularly within New York. Now, this premiered in 2019, saw release in 2020, Buffalo did. Tribeca didn't play this year. It was meant to happen in April. Instead, Tribeca actually set up, and I know you heard of this, We Are One, which was in partnership with YouTube. And that was the film festival online that saw nearly 2 million people from 180 countries. It was co-created by Tribeca, by Cannes, by Venice, by TIFF, the Toronto International Film Festival. Could that be the future of movies and especially film festivals in the years to come?
Maybe for some, they could transition. I still think you need that red carpet sort of environment where
the glitz and glamour
where everyone gets together and they form relationships, because a lot of the time for new breaking actors, they get a film and it gets into one of these festivals, then they've got agents stepping on their front door, and they've got connections that they're looking to work out. So that's another reason why it's so good for people, trying to make it in the business of movies. So yeah, you want to keep it continuing face to face. As much as the tech side of it and the online side is great, it's accessible. You still want that real life. It's the same with theatre going. We want to get back in that theatre ASAP, you and me. We're itching to get back into that dirty
we are
floor.
chomping at the bit.
That disgusting arm holder,
Get me in the cesspit.
Popcorn.
I want to be
We'll
depraved.
go in.
That's it. Drop your chalk top on the ground. Pick it back up. No one has to know.
I don't know if I'll go that far. Jesus. This is how COVID started. Anyway. Buffalo, Jackson, my final rating for Buffalo, it's going to come in at a 6 out of 10. I was thinking 7, but I had to ping it back 1 to a 6. I think there was a few elements missing. The comedy didn't quite hit. But overall, I probably would recommend it to a lazy Sunday film, I would say. Yeah, just a lazy Sunday. You and your boyfriend, girlfriend, sit down, have a laugh. Zoe does a great performance, so it's definitely worth watching if you've got the time.
I like it, Dan Allen Movies. I'm going to echo your sentiment. Again, here at the podcast, we have another movie coming in at around about that good level. For me, Dan Allen Movies, it's going to be a 6 out of 10 paper stealing sequences. Zoey Deutch, it's her film. She's the producer. She's the star. She brought in our female director, Tanya Wexler. It is It's fun. The positives here outweigh the negatives. I know it sounds like we were nitpicking, but it sounds like you and I both were entertained by this, and we want to recommend it to other listeners. Zoey Deutch's performance, she's full of moxie, full of ambition. She's swinging for the fences. Her character is in every scene of the film. It's going to, with this, she really is living by the sword and dying by the sword. It does work. It does come together by the end, even if that third act leaves a little bit to be desired.
And I would even say the funniest person in the film is Jai Courtney. I would even go that far. Maybe it's because I know what he's like in real life, and putting on the accent and doing that, it is quite funny. But yeah, I liked his performance a lot.
It's a pretty solid supporting cast. Like even some of the no-hopers and the misfits.
Who was the mother?
Yeah, that's Judy Greer. I swear this woman she's got to have 100 plus acting credits to her name. And if you don't know her face, you know her voice. Just absolutely iconic character actor.
So
she's excellent in everything.
6 out of 10 from both of us. 12 out of 20. 3 out of 5.
3 out of 5. So another middle of the pack. However, it is good. You are going to have some fun.
It's probably in the top side of 2020. Guys, thank you for tuning in to this mini-sode. It's been a blast. Jackson, where can the listeners find us?
Faithful listeners, thank you so much again for sticking around. Minisode number 6, covering Buffaloed. We'd love for you to check out our social media at We Watch This Podcast on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, on TikTok, of course, on Letterboxd. We'd love for you to hit subscribe on YouTube where you can check out exclusive content. Watch us in video form. Hello there. And we'd love for you to rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. It's the best way for this podcast to grow. Again, we'll be super grateful, super thankful, and we'll be reading out your review on a future episode. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We'd love to see those follows come in on Spotify, on Google Podcasts. He is Dan Allen Movies. I am Marshall on Film. What's the name of this podcast?
We Watch This Podcast.
And we are out of time.